Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz. I'm the Rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, speaking to you from the pulpit of our synagogue. My message for this occasion is entitled, The Arrogance of Power. You would think that the Bible would have outlawed kingship. After all, the Bible proclaims that Israel's only true God is the King, and only true King is the Lord. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. The Lord shall be king forever and ever. Exodus chapter 15, verse 18. Conversely, the paradigm of the earthly king is the wicked Pharaoh. Indeed, historically, when the Israelite tribes lobbied the elderly Samuel for a king to lead them, the prophet tried to turn their thinking around. He warned them of all the abuses that would likely follow in the wake of Israel's adopting a monarchy, 1 Samuel chapter 8. But the people would not be dissuaded. In a perilous world with murderous foes, they wanted a strong military leader. Reluctantly, Samuel gave in, and for 4 centuries, the tribes of Israel were ruled over by kings. With few exceptions, the results were judged a failure by the authors of the biblical Book of Kings. They faulted the kings for misleading the Israelites into thinking that they had God in their back pocket. With the Temple of Solomon in their capital city, they thought that their God would always protect that building, and therefore the city and the state that included it. Only the bitterness of defeat and exile to Babylonia caused the survivors to realize that they had fallen into the mistake of subordinating true religion to nationalism and chauvinism. Where are we today in the light of this? I fear that Americans, more and more, are making the twin mistakes of the Judeans of the First Temple era. The development in our majority culture, known as Christian nationalism, is dangerously close to the delusion of the ancient Israelites that this country is somehow so beloved in God's sight that we are immune from the self-criticism that comes from humility. As long as the American flag in our churches is large enough, it will cover any sin. We're also closer to the dangers of an imperial presidency than at any other time in the quarter millennium of our democratic independent history. One after another of the checks and balances painstakingly worked into our constitutional system in the Philadelphia Convention of 1787 has been demolished in recent years. In truth, the power of the presidency has grown under executives from both parties in the past 3/4 of a century into a new reality not at all envisioned by our founding fathers. But right now, the claims of our current president, abetted by a compliant or fearful Congress and a largely hand-picked Supreme Court, overwhelm the balance that has been the essential safeguard of American democracy. The Torah portion that we read this Sabbath from Deuteronomy chapter 17 speaks to this moment. It considers that the Israelites, once in their promised land, might indeed choose to be governed by a king, and it sets limits on the power of that king. Practically speaking, he may not accumulate too many horses or too many wives or too much money, all of which makes sense in terms of the realities of the early Iron Age. But there is a more general point, and I quote verses 18 through 20 of this chapter. When he is sitting upon his royal throne, the king shall write a copy of this law upon a scroll from the one that is in the custody of the Levitical priests. It shall remain with him, and he shall read it as long as he lives, so that he may learn to fear the Lord, his God, and to observe carefully all the words of this law and these statutes, so that he does not exalt himself over his kindred, or turn aside from this commandment to the right or the left, so that he and his descendants may reign long in Israel. Deuteronomy recognizes that the arrogance of power is such that it threatens to make the chief executive swell with egotistical sense of self-worth and claim immunity from all criticism. He will say that he is right at all times. The Bible specifically enjoins that the chief executive shall be actively reminded that he is under the law. Our country sometimes fetishizes the Bible. We hold it up for photo ops. We lobby for its symbolic adoption in the public square. We make it a front in our endless culture war. I have a modest request. Instead of all this idolizing of the Bible, instead of making it a golden calf, instead of subordinating it to our chauvinistic, bigoted, or narcissistic impulses, why don't we heed its core messages? That the most powerful are at risk of being the most dangerous, that they should be curbed and not appeased, that the equality before the law that God commands is actually the way for us to be a good society, that we should respect each other, that we should respect the stranger too, that we should not put stumbling blocks before the disabled, and most fundamentally, that people are not God, that only God is God. That's what a Bible-revering America would look like. That would help heal our country. May it be God's will that this be so.